Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alison Etches, and I'm here today to talk to you about what I've learned so far on my PhD. Now, when I was preparing this talk, one thing that occurred to me is that we all come to doctorates from different places. So I thought that I'd start by sharing with you where I come from in order that you can sort of compare it with where you're coming from on your doctorate. So I'm a part-time research student. I also work part-time. I'm self-funded via the Student Finance Doctoral Loan Scheme, and I would identify myself as being a later career PhD student, in meaning that I started my PhD at the beginning of the final quarter of my working career. So I'm very much a mature student. I need freedom to research flexibly, which is why I undertook a PhD programme and not a professional doctorate. I needed something that would fit around my work contracts, which, because I work contracts, they can vary and come and go. And when I did research, it seemed like professional doctorates were taught in modules and blocks, and they were quite tight and quite structured. And I needed something that would work a lot more flexibly around what I needed. And so therefore I undertook a PhD programme. I'm researching the role of subject teachers as sources of higher education information, advice and guidance for vocational pupils. I am aware that some of you this might be your first Researchers Week. You might be new to the university, or you might be thinking of doing a PhD and you'd like to find out more. So if you're new to the university, then I would say big welcome from all of us here this afternoon. If you've recently joined us, you're definitely in the right place. And in my experience, the University of Wolverhampton really does understand diversity and inclusion. And in particular, I think it's very flexible, and it's very sort of flexible and works well and leans well towards mature students, which is one of its big strengths from my point of view. Going right the way back to the beginning, one of the things on reflection I would say about starting a PhD is that to actually get started, you really need people who believe in you and encourage you, or certainly I did. I was in 2018, 2019, I worked a 6-month fixed term contract with Nottingham Trent University. And it was when I was there that I was enlightened, because I always wanted to do a PhD, but didn't think I could because I only had a postgraduate teaching certificate. I didn't have a master's. And Nottingham Trent made me very aware of the fact that provided you had a first or a 2-1 degree, there were quite a range of universities that would allow you to undertake a PhD. So I therefore went to some open days and I drew up a short list of universities. And indeed, it was when I met the University of Wolverhampton, it was David, Thompson and Brendan in particular that looked at my research proposal and ideas and actually could see the potential in it and helped me develop it, and they encouraged me and they believed in me. And so that to me is a very important part of even just getting started on your PhD application, is having that support. So moving on from there, great supervisors are to me absolutely essential, and I've been incredibly lucky to work with David Thompson and Brendan Bartram. They are patient, they're good humoured, they offer me lots of detailed constructive feedback, advice, guidance, moral support and more besides. And certainly when I read some of the things that students experience in other universities with their supervisors, it reminds me constantly how grateful and how lucky I am to be working with them. So at a more practical level, what have I learned so far on my PhD? Well, when I joined the university in early 2020, just before the pandemic, one of its marketing lines that it used was that it was the University of Opportunity. And that seems to have disappeared now, which I think is a great pity. Because to me, it very much is the University of Opportunity, and I think that's a great way to describe it. The university has taught me about building academic social networks, connecting with other universities and academics, and obviously that helps you sort of learn even more and develop your research ideas more fully. I've been meeting with people in person and online, obviously the emphasis being online because of the pandemic. There's lots of opportunities to learn new skills, which I'll talk about in a moment. And at every step of the way, the university challenges you, but in equal measure, it supports you. And it never leaves you drifting, which is something I think is very important and is a big strength. The doctoral college is one of the key ways that as a doctoral student with the university, you can learn skills. If you're already a student with us, you will know that you get the weekly email of events and activities that the doctoral college is hosting. That I would urge you to pay lots of attention to that because Deborah and Ben that run the doctoral college put lots of effort into creating a very rich programme of skills building workshops, events, things of interest, social functions and so on. One of the great things in terms of flexibility is that if you're working and can't attend a skills workshop, then the workshops are usually recorded and uploaded onto Canvas, which means that you can then access them at a time and day that is suitable for yourself. So that's super flexible and very, very good indeed. And the doctoral college obviously brings you into contact with other students and tutors, and so it's yet another source of advice and guidance. And it's also a very safe space where you can ask questions. Anything you like, you can ask in a safe space, which is so important for students. And I mentioned social. One of the things I particularly like sometimes is that Deborah's cat, Jared, he puts in an appearance sometimes when we're doing video events, which is always lovely because it's always particularly good to see Jared the cat if you're an animal lover like I am. So there are lots of perks to the doctoral college. I talked briefly earlier about skills, so I thought I'd just highlight some of the skills that in the first 16 months I've been learning, and I know I'm continuing all the time and will do throughout the programme to develop and learn new skills. But because I've been working on my literature review, the literature searching and critical writing workshops have been of particular use to me. But I've also done all sorts of more creative things that I never thought I would be doing, such as how to create a YouTube channel or making little YouTube videos and uploading them onto your channel. Something you might find quite amusing is that I'd never used Twitter before I joined the university. So last year there was a workshop about how to use Twitter to connect with academics and how to use Twitter to promote your research. So that was massively helpful to me and got me started in the world of Twitter. Something else I've learned is how to make an academic poster to summarise my research. Again, not something I ever realised existed, I found that quite challenging and quite difficult, but I've got sort of a bit of a knack of it now. So it's a very useful skill that I've learned, and I think it's an excellent way of communicating ideas. So I'm very glad that I learned that. Also some very good workshops about academic writing and how to get started in academic writing. And in particular, there's a very good one recently by Michael Jopling and Brendan Bartram. And that was particularly useful. So yeah, lots of useful things going on there. It would be wrong to do a talk like this without mentioning our fantastic libraries and staff at Walsall, Telford, City and Burton. The library, if you're new to the university, they do lots of skills building workshops as well. And you will find that you also, if you ask your faculty admin teams, they will tell you who your faculty specific librarians are. So for example, in education and health, we've got Liz and Sue, who are brilliant sources of advice and signposting. Our library staff are very, very experienced, and if you build a relationship with them, they can really help you and they can save you an awful lot of time with all their hints and tips about how to search literature, how to search databases and so on. So they are really, really an essential tool in your PhD toolkit. All I would say is it would be lovely to bring back the Burton-on-Trent location in East Staffordshire for our library. I appreciate we can't use it at the moment because it's on a hospital site. It would be lovely if the library or the university could build some bridges with Burton College and perhaps get a library facilities in Burton College instead of the hospital, so that we could perhaps do a pickup point there instead of the hospital site. Because for those of us that live northeast of Wolverhampton, in sort of South Derbyshire and East Staffordshire, it is lovely to actually have a pickup point in East Staffordshire. So that would be a little plea from me, although I don't suppose it's possible. So thinking about where I've been and where I'm going to, I'm 16 months in. I'm just completing my first draft of my literature review. For those of you that are just starting off and who, like me, are thinking, you know, the literature review in, if you're doing sort of social sciences and education PhDs, you know, sort of 24,000 odd words, and you just think, how on earth am I ever going to write all this? My advice to you is, if you use the skills building and training workshops and you use all the information and guidance that's given to you, you will amaze yourself with what you can write. And you will be so surprised. And so please don't sit there thinking, how on earth am I going to do this? Just put yourself out there and take advantage of all the help that's available to you. And you will be so proud of what you're achieving. And where am I moving on to next? Well, I'm moving on to thinking about methodology and methods, and also the ethical aspects of my research. So that's where I'm heading in the next sort of 12 to 18 months or so. And conclusions, well, I'd say to you in conclusion, I've got no regrets whatsoever. The decision to undertake a part-time PhD for me was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made, and in particular choosing the University of Wolverhampton. And I've got no fear of the next steps, because although it's all a new experience to me, I know that I've got an experienced and supportive staff and a very supportive learning community around me at the University of Wolverhampton who are there to guide me. And so for that reason, I feel very optimistic, and I don't have any sense of worry. And so there, to finish off with, if you wanted to take a photograph of my contact details, if any of you perhaps think of something where you want to ask me a question one-to-one afterwards, then by all means contact me through Twitter or LinkedIn messaging. All I would say is thank you for your time and attention this afternoon, and I look forward to taking your questions.